Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Ben Cleary. On today's program, we're going to talk about TaxWise enhancements for this tax season. And our guest today is Dawn Evaoff. Dawn is an application engineer here at CCH Small Firm Services. Dawn, good to have you with us again.
Great to be here again, Ben.
So let's talk about TaxWise enhancements. I know some of the things we're going to talk about will affect our general TaxWise users.
That's correct.
Some of the things we're going to talk about will be a little more specific for our VITA and TCE users. And you're going to tell us what's what, right?
I am. I'll let you know which one goes to what.
Okay, well, I know one thing we want to talk about for our VITA and TCE users is our new VITA page.
Correct. We have a new Volunteers News on the Solution Center, and what it's going to do is it's going to have their quick alerts and other information that pertains mainly to the VITA and TCE sites. So that'll be in addition to what we already have on our Solution Center for everyone else. So only VITA sites will have access to it, though. Nobody else will see it.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay.
So let's go into TaxWise Desktop a little bit. Tell us what's new for this year for TaxWise Desktop.
Okay.
Some of the great things we can expect.
Well, one of the first things is we have a new user called Preparer, and a preparer can prepare a return, and it can print the signature documents, but it can't do an e-file. And when I say user, it's a group that's in it that you can have, just like we have admin and we have super user and things like that. So they can use that now as well. And we've had it in TaxWise Online, but we didn't have it in desktop, so we added it so that they were more comparable, so that both of them have pretty much the same set.
Okay.
Okay. The other thing I have is the carry forward of the prep use forms, the preparation use forms. We used to just have it at the bottom of the main information sheet, and about a year or so ago, we added a whole form that has like 25 questions on it that they can do answers. And again, everybody uses it. What's happening now is we're letting it carry forward, so you don't have to redo those questions. And for the VITA TCE sites, there's certain questions that they're required to have for that particular program, and those will carry forward as well. So anything that's on there will. And at the very bottom, there's a place called Taxpayer Reminders, and that's going to carry over too. And that works like our old flips. So you can put a message down there at the bottom in the person's return, and when you create the return the following year and open it, it actually is going to pop up. So they use it for things like if somebody comes in and says, I'm getting married next summer, or you see that someone's spouse has died, you can go in and put that note in, and then when you start the return, it pops up. As well as if they owe you money. Yeah. You can do that too. So you have that as well. Also, we're adding an autosave return. You know, we can always use F2 to save the return, but you can actually go in and schedule like how many minutes you want it to save the return. It always saves when you close, or if you press F2, that still works, but you can set it up to save it every 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever you want to set that interval up. So that's something new as well.
Yeah, and this is something that I think is really important, because how many times have you been working in software and something's happened, like the power's gone off?
Yep.
All of a sudden, the last 2 hours worth of work
is gone. Yeah.
And if you autosave every what, say 5 minutes.
Right. Then you're good. You lost 5 minutes. It's not that big of a deal.
So
and again,
save a lot of your work.
If you know you're in something huge, like a stock sales transactions, and you have hundreds, yeah, let's click that F2, especially if there's a thunderstorm around instead of doing that. So you have that as well. The other thing is we changed backup and restore. And so you're going to have 3 options now. You're going to have regular backup, which is pretty much what we've always had, but you're going to have an archive backup, and then also for offices that are not networked, and we do have quite a few offices or sites that are not networked, you're also going to have it where you can transfer the e-files. So it's not a full backup, it's just that e-file to move it to the transmitting computer. So that's going to be different. And of course the restores will match as well. So you'll have different restores that match up with it. The next thing is the return list, sort and filter options. So open existing returns, you have that, all those returns listed. You have new ways that you can go in and filter them. And then also you can sort on different columns. There's some additional columns now that you can sort on, so you can look at that as well. And the last thing in desktop is that you can actually now go in and download updates automatically. So for any of these and everything we talk about today, always, always read your release notes and also look at your help files for specific information, okay?
Always
and that goes whether it's TaxWise Desktop or TaxWise Online. That's something we find a lot of times is people don't look at the release notes, and when something's changed, they call that it's broken. And it's not broken, it's just different. And they didn't read the release notes to know it's different.
And then you call customer service and find out that you should have read the release notes. You would have known that, and then you feel silly.
Yes, you're exactly right. So if you can do that, that's awesome. So that about fills in TaxWise Desktop as far as enhancements that pertain only to that.
Okay, how about TaxWise Online?
TaxWise Online has a few and then a really big one. So we'll talk about the few small ones first. We added the client diary. And again, we had that in TaxWise Desktop, and we've added it in TaxWise Online. There's a button right on the toolbar. And what that's for is to track information. So client communications, if I call because of a reject, and I leave a voicemail message, I can date and time it, and it'll date and time stamp it automatically, and I can just say left message on voicemail. Or if the client calls to give me information, I can document it in the client diary. Also, once you have a client diary note on one of the returns, it will show up. You'll have a little icon next to the name in the return list. So you'll know you have a diary note there maybe you should look at as well.
It's a good feature.
It is. It really is. The next thing is, again, carry forward of the preparer use form. Same thing as what we talked about in desktop. It'll roll forward. And so both the questions and the answers will come forward on that. And then a biggie that everyone will really sigh in relief is we've added a print reject details button. People were used to the desktop model to get rejects, and in TaxWise Online, you had a few more clicks.
Works a little differently.
Yeah, it does. So right now, right below where print return is, over on the left-hand side of the screen, as long as you have the rights, you will have print reject details. And so you can get those details from that tax return and see exactly what they are, written in English, so you can understand them and go from there.
Good new feature. Very good.
The last one is our biggie of the year. It's called the Alternative Preparation Solution. And what we have done is it's anytime you're using TaxWise Online and something happens to your connectivity, whether your internet goes down, whether you go to a nursing home that doesn't have internet one day, you can work on TaxWise Desktop. You have to keep it updated to the most recent versions, both of the program and of the forms, but you can actually do returns in desktop. You can print the signature documents that are required or the return to give to the client, and then when your internet comes back on or you go to a site that has internet, you can then transfer the returns to TaxWise Online and transmit them. So you cannot transmit them in desktop if you are a TaxWise Online user. But this opens the arena for people who weren't using the online because one day or 2 days during the season they go to a nursing home or they go to a church or they go somewhere that doesn't have internet connectivity. They can just use desktop that day, and then when they come back to the office they can go ahead and transfer the returns over to TaxWise Online, at which point the admin in TaxWise Online or someone with administrator rights will have to move them into users, and then they can be transmitted from there. So that's huge.
So it allows you to go ahead and work, store the return, do everything you need to do with your taxpayer.
Correct.
And so they're taken care of. You've got it stored. Once you get back online, it's transferred to online, and you actually get to file it there.
That is correct. And it's not for a little blip in online on internet connectivity. It's one of those things, if you know You've called your internet provider because your internet went down and they said, oh, you know, somebody hit a cable during construction. It's going to be hours before we can get it back up. Also, if there's a problem with connectivity to us of any sort, whether it's from the client's side or our side, things happen. You know, we have construction projects, things happen all the time.
Sure.
So this allows them to continue working that day and not have to close their office or close the site because they don't know what time they'll be back up. And again, for a lot of people, they had one or two sites that they would go to that didn't have connectivity, so they had to stay on desktop. So this allows them now to go to TaxWise Online.
And TaxWise Online works really well, but I think for some people there's always been a little background fear of this happening, and this takes care of that for you.
It does. You know, anything new, anytime it's new, and working online in products is not brand new, but we know that typically accountants are not the first ones to jump on something new in the software field or internet field. So it's relatively new, and people are a little concerned. What happens? What happens if the internet goes down? How do I keep going, especially during tax season when it's so busy? I mean, you know, you have days that, oh, if you were down for an hour, it would be devastating.
Oh, sure.
So this allows them to continue on. And again, I want to stress that they have to keep their TaxWise desktop updated, because you want to make sure that whatever the refund or balance due in the desktop is what you're going to have in online. And remember, we keep online updated.
Yeah, so this is something where you know if you're in advance that you're going to want to use, you want to make sure you keep it up to date. Desktop version updated.
Correct.
It's just a good thing to do.
And one of the things that's different too that people need to understand is they'll get their package again after Thanksgiving, and it will have the desktop CD in it, but they'll only have one registration code. That registration code will work both, and that's what doesn't allow them to e-file within TaxWise Desktop. So that registration code will shut off some things in desktop because they're an online user.
Right.
So
Okay.
they'll only have one reg code. Otherwise, we'll have phone calls. They'll be like, where's my reg code or registration code for TaxWise Desktop? So
Read the release notes.
read the release notes and look at your help files.
Well, Dawn, it looks like we have some really great enhancements for TaxWise, both online and desktop this year for our general users and for our VITA and TCE users. So a lot of good things happening with TaxWise.
We do. So let's hope we have an awesome tax season.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right. And we thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.